Life will always bring people into your path, some to lift you, others to test you. And one of the greatest battles you will ever face is learning how to stand firm when someone tries to control, manipulate, and break your spirit. You weren't created to be a puppet, swayed by deception and fear. You were created with wisdom, with discernment, with the power to walk in truth. In the beginning, everything seems perfect. You meet someone who makes you feel like the most extraordinary person in the world. They admire you, they praise you, they listen intently to every word you say. It feels like a fairy tale, like destiny itself has brought you together. They flood you with affection, shower you with gifts, and tell you things you've always longed to hear. You're special, you're different, you're the answer they've been searching for. They make you feel seen, cherished, irreplaceable. At first, it's overwhelming in the best possible way. You feel a deep connection, as if you've found someone who truly understands you. They memorize your likes and dislikes, echo your dreams, and tell you how rare and precious you are. They move fast, pushing for commitment, speaking about a future together, making plans that make you feel secure and wanted. Every message, every touch, every glance is filled with intensity. It's intoxicating, and you start to believe you found something rare, something beautiful, something that others only dream of. But beneath all the affection and admiration lies something far more calculated. It isn't love, it's control disguised as devotion. See, a narcissist doesn't just want a partner, a friend, or a companion. They want an extension of themselves, someone who will validate them, serve them, and fulfill their needs without question. And to achieve that, they must first make sure you are emotionally dependent on them. This is why they idealize you, put you on a pedestal, and make you feel like you are the center of their universe. They aren't just kind, they are excessively generous. They aren't just loving, they are overwhelmingly affectionate. They aren't just attentive, they seem almost obsessed with you. And because it feels so real, so sincere, you open your heart without hesitation. You trust them, you believe them, you let down your walls. But here's the thing, real love is steady, patient, and consistent. It doesn't need to rush. It doesn't demand instant devotion. And it doesn't try to consume your entire world overnight. Love bombing, on the other hand, is a strategy. It is designed to create dependency, to make you feel so deeply connected that when the shift comes, you won't be able to walk away. The shift is subtle at first. Maybe they start testing your boundaries, pushing to see how far they can go. They might make a small, critical remark and then immediately cover it with praise. They might withdraw their affection for a short time just to see how you react. And because you have been so overwhelmed with love, you brush it off. You tell yourself that no one is perfect, that they've done so much for you, that they must have a reason. Then the compliments start to fade, replaced by backhanded comments. The attention that once felt so consistent becomes unpredictable. Where they once adored everything about you, now they find small faults. You notice the change, but you don't want to believe it. You remember how wonderful they made you feel, and you convince yourself that if you just try a little harder, if you love them more, if you prove your worth, things will return to the way they were. And that's exactly what they want. See, the purpose of love bombing isn't just to make you feel good, it's to condition you, to make you crave their approval, to make you believe that their validation is the ultimate reward. And when they start pulling back, when they begin to criticize, when they introduce small doses of emotional withdrawal, you don't see it as manipulation. You see it as something you need to fix. You chase after them, trying to regain what you once had. And in doing so, you unknowingly step into the trap they set from the very beginning. The cycle begins. They praise you just enough to keep you hopeful, then take it away just enough to keep you desperate for more. And because they trained you to believe their love was special, that they saw you in a way no one else did, you fight to hold on to it, even when it starts to hurt. This is how they gain control. Not through force, not through direct demands, but through emotional conditioning. By the time you realize what's happening, you're no longer standing in the same confidence you once had. You second guess yourself. You wonder if you're overreacting. You blame yourself for the shift, thinking that if only you could go back to being the person they first fell in love with, everything would be okay. But the truth is, the person they first fell in love with wasn't you. It was an illusion they created to pull you in. And the love they gave wasn't real, was a tool, a means to an end. Because real love doesn't seek to control, manipulate, or condition. Real love doesn't build you up just to tear you down. And once you see that, once you recognize that love bombing is not a sign of devotion but of deception, you begin to reclaim your power. You realize that the love they offered was never about you, it was about them. And that the only way to break free is to stop chasing the version of them they pretended to be and start walking away toward the love you truly deserve. You remember what was said. You recall the way they looked at you, the tone in their voice, the words they used. You are certain about what happened. But when you bring it up, they deny it. They tell you it never happened, that you misunderstood, that you're imagining things. They say you're too sensitive, too emotional, always overreacting, and slowly doubt creeps in. Maybe you did hear wrong. Maybe you are remembering it incorrectly. Maybe you are the problem. At first it's subtle, a small contradiction here, a dismissive comment there. You question something they did, and they brush it off. That's not what I said. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I would never do that. They don't argue directly. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt, making you question your own perception. And because you trust them, because you believe they wouldn't lie to you, you start trusting their version of events over your own. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious forms of psychological manipulation because it works by attacking your sense of reality. It's not just about lying, it's about making you doubt yourself so completely that you begin to rely on them to tell you what's real. It's about breaking your confidence in your own thoughts, your own memories, your own intuition. It's about control. The more it happens, the more disoriented you become. You try to stand your ground to defend what you know is true, but every time they have an answer that makes you question yourself all over again. They twist the facts, rewrite history, and when you push back, they turn the conversation around to make you feel like the guilty one. Why are you always trying to start a fight? You always think the worst of me. I can't believe you would accuse me of that. Suddenly, you're the one apologizing, trying to make things right, trying to hold on to a relationship that feels like it's slipping through your fingers. But the deeper you fall into their manipulation, the more you lose sight of yourself. You stop trusting your instincts. You hesitate before speaking, unsure if what you remember is real. You walk on eggshells, afraid of saying something that might be wrong. You replay conversations in your head, trying to figure out if you misunderstood, if you were being unreasonable, if you should have handled things differently. The confusion becomes overwhelming, and the only person who seems to have clarity is them. And that's exactly how they want it. Gaslighting isn't just about distorting the truth. It's about making you doubt your ability to think for yourself. Over time, you start seeking their approval before making decisions, afraid that your judgment can't be trusted. You become dependent on them to validate your thoughts and emotions. If they say something didn't happen, you force yourself to believe them, even if deep down something doesn't feel right. If they tell you that you're overreacting, you suppress your feelings, convincing yourself that you must be too sensitive. And because they mix manipulation with moments of kindness, you stay. You tell yourself that they didn't mean to hurt you, that maybe they really are right, that maybe if you just communicate better, things will get easier. But the truth is, the more you bend to their reality, the more power they gain over you. It's a slow erosion of self, a gradual process where you stop recognizing the person you used to be. The most dangerous part of gaslighting is that it isolates you from yourself. You stop trusting your own voice. You stop believing in your own worth. You lose the ability to stand firm in what you know, and instead you shrink. You silence yourself. You surrender. And that is exactly what they want. Complete control over how you see the world, how you see them, and most importantly, how you see yourself. But the moment you recognize it, the moment you see the pattern for what it is, you begin to take back your power. The confusion starts to clear, and you realize that your feelings, your memories, your instincts are not wrong, that your perception is valid, that you do not need their permission to trust yourself. And when that moment comes, when you finally stop doubting and start believing in your own truth again, you break free from the chains they worked so hard to put around your mind. The silence is deafening. One moment everything seems fine, and the next they shut down completely. No words, no eye contact, no acknowledgement of your presence. You ask what's wrong, but they dismiss you with a cold expression or a short, clipped response. You try again, but they walk away, ignoring your existence as if you don't matter. And that's exactly how they want you to feel: small, powerless, desperate for their attention. At first, you think they just need space. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they're processing their emotions. But as time passes, you realize this isn't about cooling off or finding clarity. This is a game, a punishment designed to make you suffer. You rack your brain trying to figure out what you did wrong. You replay the last conversation, searching for a mistake, something that might have triggered this shift. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. This isn't about something you did, it's about control. The silent treatment is one of the most painful forms of emotional manipulation because it preys on the most basic human need: betterhood, no-hood, love, lack, and fear. When someone deliberately withholds communication, affection, or acknowledgement, it creates a deep sense of insecurity. It makes you feel like you don't exist, like your feelings don't matter, like you are invisible. And because it is so unsettling, so destabilizing, you become willing to do almost anything to make it stop. At first, you try to be patient. You tell yourself they just need time. But when the silence drags on, anxiety sets in. You start questioning yourself. What did I do? Am I too needy? Did I push too hard? The self-doubt creeps in, making you feel like you're the one who's in the wrong, even when you aren't. And that's exactly what they want. They want you to feel uncertain, off balance, eager to earn their attention back. Then comes the begging, the apologizing, the frantic attempts to fix something you don't even understand. You try to get them to talk, to engage, to react in any way. You soften your voice, tread carefully, trying not to make things worse. But the more you try, the colder they become. They hold their silence like a weapon, knowing that every second of it tightens their grip on you. But the real cruelty of emotional withholding isn't just the silence itself. It's the way they decide when to break it. Because when they do finally speak again, it's not because they suddenly care about how you feel. It's because they've gotten what they wanted. Maybe it's an apology for something you didn't do. Maybe it's your willingness to let go of an issue that made them uncomfortable. Maybe it's simply seeing you in distress, knowing they have the power to cause you pain. And when they decide you've suffered enough, they flip the switch as if nothing happened. They greet you casually, ask how your day is going, make a joke. There's no discussion, no resolution, no acknowledgement of the hurt they caused. If you try to bring it up, they dismiss you. Oh, you're still on that? I just needed space. You're overreacting. And just like that, you're left feeling like the problem was never them, it was you. Over time, this cycle conditions you. You learn to avoid conflict, to suppress your feelings, to tiptoe around their moods in fear of being shut out again. You start prioritizing their emotions over your own, doing whatever it takes to keep the peace. And with each silent punishment, you lose another piece of yourself. But what makes it so damaging is that it rewires the way you see love and connection. Love should feel safe, secure, consistent. But when someone uses silence as a weapon, it teaches you that love is unpredictable, that affection can be taken away at any moment, that you must constantly earn your place in someone's life. It creates a fear of abandonment so deep that you begin to accept mistreatment just to avoid feeling alone. But the truth is, real love doesn't withhold. Real love doesn't use silence as a means of control. Real love doesn't make you feel invisible. And when you realize that, when you stop chasing after someone who punishes you for existing, you begin to reclaim the power they tried so hard to take away. It starts with a simple request, a small boundary, an attempt to stand up for yourself. But instead of having a conversation, instead of acknowledging your feelings, they shift the focus entirely. Suddenly, it's not about your concerns, it's about how much you've hurt them, how unfair you're being, how they've done so much for you, and now you're making them feel like the bad guy. You find yourself backpedaling, trying to explain that you never meant to upset them. You didn't want to hurt them, you just wanted to express how you feel. But somehow, the more you try to clarify, the worse you feel. And before you know it, you're the one apologizing, reassuring, comforting them, even though they were the ones who crossed the line. Guilt tripping is one of the most effective tools of manipulation because it preys on your kindness, your empathy, your deep desire to do the right thing. And it doesn't force you to comply outright. It makes you feel obligated to. It makes you question your own needs, your own decisions, your own boundaries. Instead of standing firm, you cave in. Not because you were wrong, but because they made you feel like you were. They bring up all the sacrifices they've made, the things they've done for you, the ways they've been there in the past. And at first it seems reasonable. You don't want to be ungrateful. You don't want to disregard everything they've done. But soon you start to realize that their generosity always comes with strings attached. That every kind act, every favor, every moment of support is stored away like a debt, ready to be used against you when it's convenient. You start feeling like you owe them, like you don't have the right to set boundaries because of everything they've done. And little by little, your ability to say no disappears. But guilt alone isn't always enough. That's why they also play the victim, twisting reality to make you feel like the aggressor. The moment you push back, the moment you try to address something that hurt you, they turn to tables. I can't believe you'd say that after everything I've done for you. You always make me feel like I'm the problem. I guess I'm just never good enough for you. They cry, they withdraw, they make you feel like you've wounded them in an unforgivable way. And because you don't want to be the cause of someone else's pain, you drop the issue entirely. Over time, this pattern rewires your thinking. You become afraid to speak up, afraid to set boundaries, afraid to say no, because you know exactly what will happen if you do. You've learned that standing up for yourself doesn't lead to resolution. It leads to guilt, to conflict, to emotional exhaustion. So you keep the peace by sacrificing your own needs. You stay silent. You let things slide. You give in. And with each compromise, each moment you swallow your feelings to avoid upsetting them, you lose a little bit of yourself. But no matter how much you give, it's never enough. No matter how many times you accommodate, they always find a way to make you feel like you're still failing them. And the truth is, that's the point. They don't want resolution, they want control. They don't want a fair conversation, they want the upper hand. Their goal is not to find peace, it's to make sure that whenever there is a conflict, you are the one who bends. And that's the real danger of guilt tripping and victim playing. It doesn't just affect your relationship with them. It changes the way you see yourself. It makes you question whether you're selfish for having needs, whether you're too harsh for standing your ground, whether you're a bad person for wanting to be treated with respect. It creates an emotional burden so heavy that you'd rather suffer in silence than risk upsetting them again. But the moment you recognize this pattern, the moment you realize that their pain is not your responsibility, that their emotions are not your weight to carry, something shifts. You start to see through the manipulation. You start to reclaim your right to speak, to set boundaries, to say no without guilt. You stop carrying their burdens as your own. This is the club. Come on. And in doing so, you finally break free from the emotional chains they spent so long wrapping around you. On one moment, they make you feel like the most important person in the world. They are affectionate, attentive, and generous with their words and actions. They listen intently, shower you with praise, and make you believe that you are deeply valued. In these moments, everything feels right. You feel connected, secure, and hopeful. But just as quickly as they pull you in, they push you away. The warmth disappears, the affection fades, and suddenly you are left wondering what changed. You replay every conversation, searching for a mistake. Did you say something wrong? Did you upset them without realizing it? The shift is so abrupt, so jarring, that it leaves you confused and desperate to fix whatever went wrong. This cycle is not accidental. It is a calculated form of psychological manipulation known as intermittent reinforcement. Instead of offering consistent love and validation, they alternate between affection and withdrawal, creating an unpredictable emotional landscape that keeps you on edge. When they are warm and loving, you feel an intense rush of relief and happiness. But when they turn cold and distant, anxiety sets in. You start chasing that warmth, doing whatever it takes to bring it back. The unpredictability of their behavior creates a powerful psychological grip. When kindness and affection are given at random, the brain becomes conditioned to crave those moments even more. Just like a gambler at a slot machine, you never know when the next reward will come, but the possibility keeps you invested. You tolerate the coldness and when it does, the relief is so overwhelming that you forget about all the times they made you feel invisible. This manipulation is particularly effective because it makes you attach even more value to their moments of kindness. If they were always cold, you would leave. If they were always warm, you would feel secure. But by keeping you in a state of emotional limbo, they make you cling to the relationship even tighter. You start to see their affection as a reward that must be earned rather than something that should be given freely. You begin modifying your behavior, trying to anticipate what will keep them happy. You suppress your feelings, avoid difficult conversations, and make yourself smaller just to keep the peace. You start measuring your worth based on how they treat you, believing that if you could just be better, more patient, more understanding, then maybe they would stop pulling away. But no matter how much you try, the pattern never changes. The cycle continues, keeping you trapped in a relentless loop of emotional highs and lows. And just when you think you've had enough, just when you start to pull away, they sense it. They see you slipping, and suddenly the warmth returns. They apologize. They shower you with affection. They make promises of change. The love you've been starving for is finally given. And for a moment, you feel whole again. But it never lasts. The cycle resets, and before long, the coldness creeps back in. Over time, this erodes your sense of self. You lose trust in your own emotions, unsure whether you are overreacting or justified in your feelings. You second-guess your instincts, convincing yourself that maybe this is just how love works. But love should not feel like an emotional roller coaster. Love should not be something you have to chase, beg for, or prove yourself worthy of receiving. Breaking free from this manipulation starts with recognizing the pattern. When you see it for what it is, you begin to understand that their affection is not a reflection of your worth. It is a tool of control. You realize that you do not have to earn love, that real connection does not require suffering, and that true security comes from within. And the moment you stop accepting this cycle, the moment you refuse to play their game, is the moment you reclaim your power and finally free yourself from the emotional chains they work so hard to place around you. You try to have an honest conversation. You bring up something that hurt you, something they did that crossed a line, hoping for understanding, resolution, maybe even an apology. But instead of acknowledging their actions, they turn it back on you. Suddenly, you're the one being accused. The blame is no longer on them, it's on you. The conversation shifts so fast that you barely realize what happened. What started as an attempt to address an issue becomes an interrogation about your flaws, your shortcomings, your mistakes. Projection and blame shifting are powerful tools of manipulation designed to keep you in a constant state of defensiveness. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they unload their guilt onto you. They accuse you of doing the very things they are guilty of. If they lie, they say you're dishonest. If they are unfaithful, they accuse you of being untrustworthy. If they are controlling, they call you the manipulator. It is a relentless tactic that distorts reality and keeps you in a cycle of self-doubt and guilt. At first, you try to explain yourself. You defend your intentions, your actions, your words. You go over every detail, trying to prove that you are not the person they are making you out to be. But no matter how clearly you state the facts, they twist them. The more you try to reason, the more tangled the conversation becomes. And before you know it, you're apologizing for something you didn't do just to restore peace. Projection allows them to avoid accountability. Instead of looking inward and addressing their own flaws, they externalize them, making you the scapegoat for everything that goes wrong. They refuse to self-reflect, refuse to take responsibility, refuse to admit any wrongdoing. And by projecting their faults onto you, they maintain the illusion that they are blameless while keeping you in a constant state of emotional turmoil. Blame shifting works hand in hand with projection. Whenever they feel cornered, they immediately redirect attention away from themselves. If you express hurt, they accuse you of being too sensitive. If you call out their inconsistency, they blame you for being too demanding. If you try to discuss something they did, they bring up a completely unrelated mistake from your past, making you feel like you have no right to complain. The goal is to keep you so busy defending yourself that you never have the chance to hold them accountable. Over time, this dynamic wears you down. You start questioning yourself, wondering if maybe you are the problem. Maybe you are too critical. Maybe you do overreact. Maybe you are expecting too much. The constant need to defend yourself erodes your confidence, making you more likely to accept their version of events. And once you start believing that you are the one at fault, they have complete control. This cycle is especially damaging because it alters your perception of reality. You start to feel like no matter what happens, you will always be the one to blame. You begin to suppress your emotions, avoiding difficult conversations out of fear that they will be turned against you. You walk on eggshells, constantly analyzing your words and actions, afraid that anything you say might be used as ammunition later. And in doing so, you lose sight of your own truth. But no matter how much they try to shift the blame, the truth does not change. Their projection is not a reflection of who you are, it's a reflection of what they refuse to acknowledge about themselves. Their accusations are not based on reality, but on their need to avoid accountability. And the moment you recognize this, the moment you stop accepting their false narratives, you begin to break free. Breaking the cycle means refusing to internalize their blame. It means recognizing when you are being manipulated and standing firm in your truth. It means setting boundaries, refusing to engage in their distorted conversations, and reclaiming your power. Because the moment you stop defending yourself against their false accusations, the moment you stop accepting blame for things that are not yours to carry, is the moment you take back control of your mind, your emotions, and your life. The threat hangs in the air, palpable and heavy. It's not just in the words, but in the way they speak them. Cold, deliberate, with a tone that sends a chill down your spine. The strength of the alcoholic is not their desire. It's the fact that they cannot control a wake-up in their mind. It could be a threat of abandonment. You're lucky I even put up with you. Or a promise to leave if you don't comply with their demands. It could be more subtle. Comments about how no one else would ever accept you, how you're nothing without them, how you would fail without their guidance. The intent is clear: to make you feel small, insignificant, and powerless. Fear is a powerful motivator, and when used as a tool of control, it creates an environment where you are constantly walking on eggshells. You never know when the next threat will come, when the next bomb will drop. But one thing is certain: you are never at ease. Every decision, every action, every word you speak feels weighed against the possibility of their anger, their withdrawal, or their retaliation. At first, the threats may seem like an exaggeration, something said in the heat of the moment, but over time they start to take root. You begin to feel the weight of them in your gut. The fear becomes a constant companion lurking in the back of your mind. What will happen if you disagree? What if you say no? What if you stand up for yourself? The consequences, you're told, will be dire. Your world will come crashing down. And so you comply not because you want to, but because the alternative feels too dangerous, too terrifying. They know that fear will keep you tethered to them. They know that if they can make you afraid of losing them, of facing the unknown, they can control your every move. The power imbalance grows. You find yourself rationalizing their behavior, convincing yourself that maybe the threat wasn't so bad. Maybe you just misunderstood. You tell yourself that it's easier to give in, to keep the peace, to avoid conflict. But with every concession, with every moment you silence your own voice, you give them more control over you. The manipulation escalates when they use your deepest fears against you. If you have a fear of abandonment, they threaten to leave. If you fear being alone, they remind you how much they've sacrificed for you, how no one else would care for you the way they do. If you fear failure, they make you believe you will fall apart without them, that you cannot succeed without their support. They latch onto these insecurities, twisting them, using them to create even more fear. The fear tactic isn't always as overt as direct threats. Sometimes it's about planting seeds of doubt. They may imply that you're not good enough, that you're too difficult to love, or that you'll never find anyone better than them. They make you believe that your value is entirely dependent on their opinion, that your worth is tied to their affection. You start to feel like you need them in order to survive, and the idea of walking away seems impossible. This psychological manipulation has a profound effect on your self-esteem. When you live in a constant state of fear, constantly worried about their next move, Your sense of self erodes. You become dependent on their validation, seeking reassurance from them in order to feel okay about yourself. The fear of losing them makes you put up with behavior you would otherwise never tolerate, and before you know it, you're trapped in a cycle of compliance, where standing up for yourself feels like an insurmountable challenge. The real damage comes when the fear shifts from external to internal. You no longer just fear their threats, you begin to fear yourself. You start to believe that you don't deserve happiness, that you don't have the strength to leave, that you're too flawed to make it on your own. The fear becomes self-perpetuating. You no longer rely on their threats to keep you in line, because the real fear lies within you, in your belief that you can't live without them, that you will fail if you try to break free. But once you recognize the pattern, the fear begins to lose its grip. You begin to see the manipulation for what it is. A tactic designed to make you feel powerless, to keep you in line, to force you to comply with their will. The moment you realize that you are worthy of love, respect, and freedom, the fear starts to dissipate. It may take time, but with each step you take to reclaim your autonomy, the hold they have on you weakens. And when you finally break free, you realize that the only thing you were truly afraid of was your own power to walk away, to live a life unburdened by fear and threats.